if you don't know me. If you are on FetLife, I am the kink shrink or the grey queen personally. That's who I am. I identify as female. I'm a submissive, and my main kink is being a cuck queen. I am everything sexual, sleep with everything, but I am mainly heteronormative in my relationships are normally heterosexual, so there will be male gender, but not all the time. So I'm a real mix. I identify as queer as well. I've been doing this since I was 17. I've been a queer, crazy, kinky, polyamorous woman since I was 17 years old, and I am 58 in June, so it's quite a long time. I'm also a therapist. That's what I do for a living, and I probably specialise in this area. And again, I do talks at unis, psychology conferences all around the world. I'm very lucky. I've been asked all around the place, and I do specialise in kink and poly, I guess. There is no true or real expert in kink and poly. If anyone tells you they are, talking out their arse, they want something from you. Normally it means suck my dick on my cunt, one or the other. Or they just, you meet a lot of self-proclaimed experts online. I'm an experienced expert dom. In what aspect? What does that even mean? And what do you mean by that? I'm an expert. What, in everything, in every way? Like, even if I've looked at 2 PhDs. Come on in, grab a seat if you want to. There she is. I've looked at 2 PhDs, and then they're really cool, the subjects I want to study, but it would make me an expert in that one specific area. PhDs are generalised, and kink and poly are these huge things that we look at. I was talking at a uni on Tuesday, actually, and it was interesting because I was given 4 hours. Come on in if you want to sit. Come on in, it's all right. Come on in, sit wherever you like. There's 2 at the back there if you want to go down there. You want to sit together. But they're moving along like you. Okay. And I was given 3 hours to talk on kink, fetishes, polyamory, consent, and I can't remember what. And I was like, I can give you an overview. So these things take a lot of time. Just a workshop on consent for me can take a couple of hours, and Betty Martin's Wheel of Consent, when she teaches it, takes 3 days. So these things take a long time. So the idea of these workshops is they were started about 8-10 years ago. I can't remember. I find that COVID is just this forgotten time. It's just this, did that happen those 2 years? So I'm not sure if they're counted in that or not. So the idea of these was that we would just run a session every week. People could ask anything they want. So what do I cover? Anything to do with kink, anything to do with fetishes, anything to do with mental health, anything to do with polyamory, communication, why, what happened, when, where, history of it, even any of those things. It's very expansive, isn't it? And the idea is that you can ask anything you like and we talk about it. That's the idea of these. They were supposed to dwindle to nothing at some point, probably in about a year or so. They never have, although this is a lowish attendance because normally it's rams and queues, so maybe it's a coronation or something. Maybe I'm just getting too old. I did say that earlier. Maybe the garden parties. They're the kinkiest fuckers, I tell you. I was speaking to some guy the other day on, what was it? It wasn't Field, it was another dating site, and I found it interesting because he was saying, I suppose you just want posh people to top you. And I said, what the fuck is your problem? What does that even mean? I just want posh people. Well, people who come from the capitalist society, like, mate, you've got a problem. It's really, I don't even understand what that means. I really don't. And I am a privileged woman, so I really don't. So I'm like, seem fairly alternative, but, private school or those, had a very privileged background. So it's interesting, isn't it, where we go. Come on in if you want to. There are seats at the back. There's a couple here. Brilliant. You're all really welcome. So the idea of these is that they're a Q&A session. Now, I already have 2 questions asked externally before we started, and they are 90 minutes. So let me just go to the photograph of these first 2 questions. And these ones are more about psychology of emotion and different things, but feel free to ask a question about anything that's kink, psychology, fetish, power exchange, authority transference type relationships. We'll go into them as we go. So the first question was, this is about a past workshop on emotions where it was discussed that people can't make us feel anything no matter what they do. It is up to us to choose to feel in a certain way regardless of what someone did or said. Why do some people tend to believe that others, parents, friends, partners, etc., make us feel either good, bad, or angry and happy or jealous? Come in. grab that one and put it over there. And because I know you're together, you were very entwined earlier, very beautifully. Here you go, look. Oh, I love you for that. Thank you so much. No, I've tried. That's funny. Right, so the idea was this one. Is this connected to a sense of placing responsibility on others about our feelings? And then there's also a thinking question after that. So emotions are cunts. Let's just get that straight. If you want, there's a really good talk by a woman called Lisa Feldman Barrett on TED Talks, and she talks about actually emotions are all about patterns. When you are born feeling. So actually, it's quite an interesting structure. So you see a lot of therapists who use. Is anyone here a therapist, or a counsellor, or a psychologist, or a psychiatrist? Training. Oh, I can make up shit then, and you'll I mean, even if people are qualified, it's just a heap of shit, isn't it? And it's an interesting science as to what you believe. One of my favourite hobbies is neuroscience. I'm so fucking boring. It's unbelievable. Okay, so you must be such fun. No, I'm so boring. It's unreal. So it's interesting. Emotions, the way they're felt. When you are born with some basic core emotions: happy, angry, sad, scared, content, disgust, and surprise. There is a place there. There's a place at the back. There's a place there, wherever you feel comfortable. And by the way, if you are training, whether you text me afterwards or email me on, I'll give you my email address or my phone number. My phone number is free to everyone, especially if I fancy you. That's a joke. And you can get free CPD certificate as well, because that's normally about 60 to 80 quid for a CPD, which is career professional development in the field of psychology. So I offer them for free. I also do Zoom workshops every other Thursday for 2 hours. Any of you are welcome to those. They cover a variety of topics. If you're bored on a Thursday evening every other week, we cover all sorts, all about kink and psychology and all sorts of different things. And I do it with my best friend, who is also a psychologist and also been kinky for over 20 years. So between us, we've got about 60 years experience. It's not bad. So emotions are funny things. We're born feeling. You are not born thinking. You are not born behaving. When you are born, what you have, even in utero, is you have experiences as such, but you have genetics. So genetics will decide your skin colour, your eye colour, and many other things. But those genetics can throw back to 300 years before. You can have an Asian couple that have a white baby. You can have all varieties of things. I mean, the immediate thing is, fuck me, you've been cheating, you cunt. Maybe not. And it's quite shocking what can actually happen. But what we don't look at, it's only just come out in the 1990s and 2000s, is that we have this thing called epigenetics, which means when somebody has a form of experience, it impacts our cellular reaction, the way we read something, our genome. It impacts the way if somebody has an experience, we impact our baby, but we impact generations afterwards as well. So actually the shit you're born with isn't necessarily yours. And we all go for a cure, so we need to just think about that sometimes, whatever the word cure means. So emotions, as I said, are complete cunts. They are patterns of experience that we learn. You are born feeling, you develop behaviour, and then you go on to develop cognition. So when you go and see a therapist, you just does CBT, you're just working with the thought. And that can be really beneficial. Let's take it to a house. Your house might have a bit of damp. You might, listen, fuck me, ADHD, right? I'm obsessed with orange at the moment. So, does that show? Oh. But before that, it was pink. So, ADHD comes with its own obsessions in different ways. I did 15 years on pink, lost my hair because of chemo and cancer. Come on in. That's all right. Lost my hair, and then when it won't grow back properly, I was going to leave it. It was all grey, and I was like, "Oh, new obsession orange. Everything's orange now." So we can get obsessed. Different things influence us in different ways from genetics and our patterns. So if you imagine that you are a house, you might be able to change all your soft furnishings. My house is definitely 50 shades of grey. It is, if you come into it, it's every form of grey. But all the accessories are copper or orange, and everything matches, blends, and works. That's the way I function. It has to work that way. Even the cutlery, the crockery, everything has to look perfect on the outside. It looks great. And then we can change that. That's great. So if that doesn't work for us, we can buy something new. Wonderful. However, if you have damp coming through your conservatory, or if you have a bit of a crack here, or if your house isn't big enough, you have to move or change something, and that's more behavioural. That will impact your behaviour. You're like, oh, I feel a bit better now because, you know, I've got that damp sorted. My daughter's just coming back from the Bahamas. We just been at a cheer competition in Florida. We were at Worlds and Summit last week. I brought one of the teams back. There's been 2 teams, Worlds and Summit, and then they've got another team, they've just been in the Bahamas as well. And they're going to come back to a gas leak under their house. So now that's much more dangerous. That's now structural. It's not outside, it's inside. And that's where our foundations are fucked, and that's our feelings. And you are taught your feelings. Although you're born with those basic feelings, your family teach you how to have them. You've all got parents who maybe were very angry or didn't do anger. Terribly British. Who here is terribly British? We don't do anger. We don't talk about that, darling. No, that's irrelevant. Especially if you went to boarding school. Welcome to boarding school syndrome. Look it up if you went to boarding school. It's very interesting. You might think you've got depression and many other things, or anxiety or stress, or you don't connect well. You've probably got boarding school syndrome. Totally different thing. So we need to be able to learn that our parents teach us stuff around feelings and it becomes patterns. So it's very uncomfortable to have a feeling. Think about BDSM, think about kink, think about shame. You know, I might throttle my partner, but I've been brought up as a terribly nice chap. One doesn't do that. Or I'm a nice girl. People don't do that, you know. Or I don't know what gender I am. Is it right to have that inserted in my bloody cunt? Even if I don't know what gender I am. We feel shame when we feel different things. And actually culture comes into that as well, massively. Religion, colour, everything else that comes into it massively as to how you should be with somebody and what you're allowed to get away with and not get away with. They all have massive influences on us. But they're all a pattern that you've been taught. The good news is they can be changed. But the question was asked is, you know, where does it come from? It comes from genetics, epigenetics, and it comes from what you're taught is right or wrong. But the good news is, because it's a learned experience, it can be unlearned. It's really hard. You know, for example, that if you go for that custard donut and you know exactly how many calories are in it, you're like, fuck me, that's quite a few hundred calories, isn't it? I shouldn't really eat that, that's bad for me. There's quite a lot of sugar in it. It's white, there's nothing good in there for me. There's nothing of any value. But your hand is going. You feel a bit like, oh, I shouldn't eat that. And then you know, you're shaming yourself, it's even worse. And it's coming towards your mouth, and you just, and maybe you have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Just me? No. So maybe you eat it. You brought the cookies. Right. If anybody wants them, he's got a pack of cookies, right? So, and then you eat it because it isn't the knowledge, it isn't your thought, it isn't a behaviour, it's your fucking guts, you want it. And we've got to be really careful of that when it comes to sex and BDSM, because when you're in the middle of that passion, in the throes of that passion, you say yes to shit you never really wanted to do. So emotions get in the way of that as well. So emotions, you're born with a basic core of emotions, of the feelings, but how you then interpret them, i.e. into feelings and other things, that's when it becomes a problem. So we have to really watch that as human beings. So someone can't make you feel that way. So let's say you're going out with somebody. I'm going to pick on you because I know you. We're going out, right? It's lovely. He's just dumped me and I'm heartbroken. Can't breathe. He's joyful, that cunt. I'm doing his clawing, you know, writing down fucking wank on the side and trying to ruin his life or whatever it is that we do. Right, so, and I'm feeling lots of things, but the thing is, if we're together, if you were his, you wouldn't, or you won't, you just know that it's happened, it doesn't impact you in the same way. So feelings, being dumped doesn't hurt. Being dumped by one person that you have an investment in hurts you. It's the investment that hurts you, it's the expectation, it's the hope you feel. It's everything you've been told of, oh darling, if you're dumped, you're not very desirable, are you? Or you know, if you have too much sex. There's a recent bit of research that came out about the amount of partners one should have. Fuck me. You know, there are desirable levels as to whether somebody wants a relationship with you or not, especially if you own a fucking vagina. It's still there. It's okay to have a little more in the terms of experience and partnerships if you own a cock. Good on you guys. Fantastic. Well done. And it's not as big as you think it is, the figure. What do you think the desirable figure for a relationship with a vulva owner is? 4, 6, 8, 12, 10. It's around 4 to 6. On I stopped counting around 1,000. I'm a fucking horror. Right, so what I've done, fuck me. And of course, it's not desirable because you have, but that's to do with culture and society. When we look at today with what's acceptable and what isn't, you have to remember the things we're introducing nowadays to say what's okay and what isn't will only affect our children probably within the next 100 years. Rape culture, all of those things, equality, gender, all these things we talk about, equality is just in gender and or colour or religion. All of those things are going to take hundreds of years to evolve. Hundreds. They will not happen today. However, the more you do it, the more your children will hear it, the more your children will be born with it, the better we'll get. So emotions are a learned experience, which means they can be unlearned, changed and modified. However, when you change and modify anything, it fucks your life up, doesn't it? Because you're like, oh shit, it's all a lie. Fuck, how do I do this now? How is it okay for me to have a relationship, to want these things, to be kinky, to be alternative, if we relate it back to this? It's a big thing. And it does matter. It does come through cultures. It really does. We can be a victim for different reasons. I'm a historically Jewish woman, for whatever that means. My great-grandparents escaped from pogroms on an onion boat. That comes into a lot of my passwords, if anybody wants to know,
What onion boat?
Onion boat. It's my hint for the name. I have. Onion boat. Couldn't get it out, I don't think. Yeah. So you've got to be careful. It depends what's in your mouth as well. Anyway, it doesn't come over very I'm just going to turn anyone off there because you're now speaking with the exorcist, aren't you? Actually, I really want to have sex with a ventriloquist then. I think that could be kind of good, fucking you, and there's this thing in the room going, I will completely define it.
Doesn't he need to put a hand up somewhere?
I'm bad for kids, man. Let me just tell you, by the way, that shit is fantasy. Just because you've had children doesn't make you any looser than anybody else.
Doesn't turn you into God puppet.
It doesn't. Walking glove puppet. It's just a heap of shit. People, we continue that as one of those myths. It's just a load of shit. Right, so the second question I had as well was, how does a BDSM kink plus explorer discern peer pressure, what's currently in vogue, or represented both at events or online, from their real personal desires, wants or needs? That's a good question. Okay. Right, how does somebody who's into kink differentiate between what they actually want because they want it, or because of what's around and what's trendy and what's peer pressure? You have to understand your own values and how does that lie within them. You also have to understand your own upbringing, work out how it doesn't lie within them. So like, for example, when I talk at unis and stuff, the thing therapists have the most problem with is actually when, it's not when somebody comes in and says, yeah, I quite like someone shitting in my mouth. They might not have as much of a problem with that, and they might go, oh, gosh, really? What they'll have a big problem with is degradation and humiliation, which is one of my major kinks. They're going to have a bigger problem with that, because if you're called a fat fucking worthless cum dumper or whatever, and I'm a cut queen, I'm going to go fuck somebody else and I feel better than you, the therapist is immediately going to assume that I have a really low self-esteem, that I'm not okay. They're going to make lots of assumptions around that. Now, there are lots of trends. Who here is into daddy? A few people. Who here is into authority transference? Right, someone else has power. Who here is into, you don't have to put your hands up, by the way, fuck me, no pressure. And who here is into polyamory? So I would argue that what's interesting to be on the scene for a long time and to watch all these things on the scene for a long time is polyamory comes in waves and starts. It isn't some new discovered thing, it comes in waves and starts. And it's really trendy at the moment. It really is. But is that because we don't know who we are, or should we be with one person or many? Lots of people don't know who they are and are wondering what that means and are trying to search for themselves. So there's a lot of daddy going on at the moment. And let me tell you now, daddy was not okay even 15, 20 years ago. If you mention the word daddy or into daddy care or anything like that, you're a fucking paedophile and weird and you weren't even welcome on the scene. Maybe 20 years ago, it started to change. So old. So, and that's interesting because I'm massively into the whole daddy. I want the whole care and authority transference. That's what matters to me. I don't care if you're 20 years younger than me, you're still daddy. But you have to earn that as well. It's not done immediately because it's got a lot of trust with it. But a lot of us are also looking out for things. Because of the world we live in, we're looking for immediate gratification. It's all about the immediacy, and actually really good kink, really good authority. We use the words power exchange, and that's quite interesting because are we really exchanging power, or am I temporarily giving you some power? We know from a legal perspective that actually you cannot go into court and say, well, daddy made me do it. It's not going to wash. It never will. So we have to be really aware of our own power as well, and that's really important to remember because near enough all kink is illegal. Do you understand that? If you play physically and you leave more than a trifling or transient mark on a partner, you have just broken the law. Who has broken the law? Do you know that? Do you know who's broken the law? Is it you who's done it? Is it the person at the top? Both. It's both. Why is it both? You cannot consent to violence against you. So like you put your hands up immediately, you are both now guilty of having broken the law because you consented to violence against you. Anyone think that doesn't apply to them? We don't really do that sort of thing. I've never done something that hard. So a lot of people can think that. Anyone here ever given anyone a love bite? Even at the age of 12. You've just broken the fucking law. So that's more than now. Hopefully, what we have is the Crown Prosecution Service use their fucking brains. Oh no, wait, hang on. Yeah, go on.
I'll just say for others, like what class is this?
Trifling or transit is a mark that lasts for more than a reasonable amount of time. So you tell me what the fuck that means. I mean, if you hit a child, it is still legal to hit a child. If you don't leave a mark, then it doesn't count. If you do leave a mark, then it does. Probably within 20 minutes up to 24 hours. However, what you haven't taken into account is how is that person's skin? What is their blood flow like? What medication are they on? I took blood thinners. I had 2 lung clots in each lung when I was having chemo, so I was really ill. Fucking that shit kills you, I tell you, even though it saved your life. But Jesus Christ, one poke and I was bruised everywhere. So everything was illegal that I was doing by far. And you have to be really aware of that shit. Anyone go on holiday here? Anyone ever crossed the border here? Yeah? Anyone keep dirty pictures on their phone? Be careful. The people who have the most rights in this country, and I've just been to America, they have more rights than anyone. Let me tell you, everything comes off my phone when I'm over there. They have the right to take my phone and to look for it. And that sort of shit can be prosecuted. I'm not trying to scare the shit out of you, maybe I am a bit, but just be aware. So how does that rely on, or how does that influence the influence that other people have on us? And what's out there is trending. Like if I'm on FetLife, I love looking at pictures by someone called Corporate Muscle. What him and his partner do, I'm like, that's so fucking hot. I don't like the way he is, but I really love Damon Danes' pictures. They're so violent and aggressive and outrageous. But actually, they're really bad when it comes to physiology and physicality. What they show is a complete lack of awareness of what parts of the body are more damaged than others when we're playing. And you think, oh, I really want to do that to someone, but it doesn't take into account the someone. What is their physical state? What is their emotional state? What is their medication? How are they? What's happening for them? Do they take aspirin? Do they take blood thinners? What do they take? Do they take antidepressants? Like, what's going on for them? How will I mark their body? And is this a good place to hit? And actually, there are some places that really aren't good to hit. Phil said earlier, if you were in his talk, that consent is everything that matters. He's right. And there is no such thing as consent. What do I mean by that? There is no such thing as fully informed consent. You do not know that what you're about to do is not going to damage you in some way, shape, or form eventually, be that emotionally, psychologically, or be that physically. I'm quite extreme in my play. I have been since the beginning. I love being punched. It's quite extreme for some people. The bursters in my hips have all split. I have steroid injections probably twice a year because of that. Now, according to the world, it's a dance injury. We all know what it really is. Like being punched. So again, got to be really careful. You can't consent because you don't really know. However, we have to do our best job. So I think we're really influenced by pictures, by what happens around us. We're really influenced by what someone else is doing, wearing. If somebody else looks cool, social media. But you've got to ask, is that truly what I want? And I think there are an awful lot of submissives who are real pleasers. Anyone here a pleaser? So you've got to watch it. If I'm pleasing you in order to be accepted, in order to be okay, that's lovely and that can be really wonderful in a loving, caring relationship. If you're doing it with a person you just met online and you've already got your cunt out or your cock out, whatever bits you've got, there's a risk with that. Do you really want to do that? Now, you could argue if you're a slave, it doesn't matter what you want or not. There is that. If you're submissive, what you want might come into it more. You've still got rights. My biggest question as a submissive is, what's in it for me? And that's very unsubmissive, isn't it? What's in it for me? What am I going to get out of that? I've got to ask that question because the more I love, the more submissive I am, and I can let go of a lot of my parameters.
It's a two-way thing. Whether you're a dom or sub, it's pleasing each other and having that relationship or that partnership.
Yeah, and I was going to go on to say, and it doesn't just stop with a submissive. There are plenty of tops who do things because they think it's what the other person wants. And if you're then both doing something you both don't fucking want because you're doing what the other person wants, neither of you are having a great time. So we have to kind of ask, is this what you want? Is this what I want? Betty Martin's Wheel of Consent talks about a four-way, not a two-way. Do I want to do this? Do I want to receive this? Does the other person, what do they want to give? It's really complex. You get too bogged down in it all as well. Jesus Christ, just fist them and have a good time. Yeah, there is that. Can work really well.
And you did say before, not this one, before you talked about that, I found it very interesting that you talked about those four elements and the fact you see the number of interactions online and things like that, there's only two.
Mm-hmm.
And the other person didn't get that, it's been a big problem for treating people being groomed.
Yeah, you will do this. This is how.
Yeah, this is how it is, and you immediately cut them off from anyone else in the scene and then their information.
Yeah, for sure. There is a lot of that. And I think we're easily influenced by that. When you're, is anyone here new to kink and new to fetish and newish on the scene last year, should we say? It's so easy, isn't it, when you read or you meet someone new and they're saying things to you like, if you were a good girl, you would. If you were a good boy, you would. If you loved me, you would. Everyone does this. This is really normal. Oh no, all submissives do this. Most men want this. Most women love this. Fuck me, listen to what you're saying. Look, that isn't gaslighting. Gaslighting is a really misused word, right? One of the misused, most preferred, along with narcissist and psycho and a few others. Right, really misused words. However, it is starting to condition somebody that says everybody always, and you don't have to fit into that criteria. And I think you need to have discussions with yourself about what it is that you want. I'm a real big believer in writing your own Haynes manual. So what is a Haynes manual? So a Haynes manual is, for those of you who read before the internet, old-fashioned books. Oh, sarcasm. Right, so a Haynes manual is if you've got a car, you've got a Haynes manual. Why? Because it told you how to do everything with a fucking car, everything with a bike. This is your make, this is your model, this is what it looks like, this is what makes it go. This is how you fix it. These are all the problems that can come with it, and these are all the fixes that you can use, and these are all the experts. I really believe, as a top or a bottom or anyone else who's in the scene, even for poly, write your own Haynes manual. And if you start to write that out, and it can be a living document, so you write and you add to it all the time, if you've got a top or a bottom, and you're either of those, make that as a task for each other. It's a great thing to do. See what matches up, see what doesn't, see what you're willing to push, see what you're not willing to push. The amount of tops I meet who say, what are your limits? And I'll tell them my limits, and they go, haha, there's something to push then. Fuck off. My limits are my limits for a reason. I've been doing this for a really long time. I've pushed things more than most people have. I've tried all sorts. If I say I don't want to do it, it's because I don't want to fucking do it. It isn't a game. And my limits are things like don't impact my family. You'd be surprised how many people want me to still suck their cock in the kitchen if one of my daughters comes in. Mate, really? Still out there. You think it isn't? I promise you it is. Or, no, I don't want that. That would cause too much trouble. It's like I have to be slightly careful of my right side nowadays because I've had my lymph nodes taken out of my right side. So I don't feel. Plus I've had breast surgery, plus I've had my lymph nodes out here. So there's some numbness. So if you want to put alligator clips on this nipple and rip them off, I'm not going to know if it's missing. I look down and go, oh, that's bad. So I need you to be conscious of what I like and why I like it and the things that matter. So I think there's a lot of pressure to be extreme nowadays, to jump straight in the deep end. I want it all, I want it now, I want it delivered, and I want it with ribbons on. And I want it to look like that. And a lot of that tolerance and stuff that we do builds up over time. I haven't played properly in a little while. If somebody turned and said, I'm going to beat the living shit out of you, I'm going to have a pretty rough time. I might like that rough time on an emotional level. I'm probably not going to enjoy it on a physical level. And I'm going to be like this for the next 3 days, probably. Because it's going to, because you have to build up tolerance over time for different things. Same as rope. So you've got a rope session in here a bit later with Mr. Opal Fruit. Look, rope can be really great. It's wonderful. It's swaddling, it's coddling, it's lovely, and it gives us all sorts of different sensations. You know, if your arm is slightly uncomfortable and it starts to go numb and it hurts, you've got to communicate that to you. You don't have to tolerate it. But the more your arm is there, the more you get used to it, the more flexibility you get. Anyone here can do the splits? Want to do splits? Okay, I can. Still, interestingly, so I can bet you can teach the splits to anybody, no matter how physically unstretched they are, probably with anywhere between 6 to 12 weeks. It's all a matter of progression. Clearly, disabilities and other things get in the way. And if you've got things like hypermobility, don't do the fucking splits because, you know, you already can and your head's fucking foot's over there and it just makes things worse. So you have to be aware of your own conditions. But you can teach anyone to do anything like that pretty in any reasonable time, 3 months roughly. Takes 90 days. Oh, fuck me.
We've not got that kind of relationship.
I don't know, you just hit my collar, mate. Did you or did you not accept a collar from me?
I did, yes.
Yeah, thank you, that's enough. Right. No, it's on your cock. Look, you should say that. It's quite a big collar. You should be really happy about that. This is Cosmic who runs LAM. Hello, Cosmic.
Hello, everybody.
You alright?
Yeah. You looking forward to the new PLL?
I am. I'm going to talk about that at the end. So,
I'll leave you to that then.
all right, you advertising marketing twat.
Things like that.
And the best part is, I can watch and listen to that later on the live. Busted!
It's your sort of pop music, isn't it? So, we do argue quite a lot. So it's really important to understand that you are only accountable for you on the scene, whether it's emotions or whether it's play or different things that you're into. The only one that will suffer from anything that you choose is you. If you consent to stuff and you don't want to do it, if you're uncomfortable with something, if it's trending, you think you should, of course you're influenced by what's around you. Come on, you're all sold to every day. If you're on Facebook, Snapchat, if you're on fucking Be Real, it doesn't matter, all this shit comes up. They're not too old for Be Real or something. Come on, who's got to Be Real? A few of you have, if you're younger. There we go, I thought I was too old for this, I know I'm not now. Right, so it's a new social media platform where you take 2 photographs of where I am right now and the other people in front of me, and it flashes up. It's just a social media platform, but my point is they will sell to you. They will listen to you. They will know what you're looking at and what you're doing every day. So, of course, marketing is targeted to you. However, what you suffer from, because the question was, what happens to us? It's something called confirmation bias. When somebody dies or something awful happens, so it's my mum's 2nd year anniversary of her death next week. It's also the same day as my daughter's birthday. She's a bit of a selfish twat like that, right? I said, don't fucking die tomorrow, I'm telling you now. She bloody did, right? And I said, it's really unfair on my daughter. It's not, because it's all fine. But the point is, we do get marketed to. But we hear things we want to hear. When my mum died, it felt like everything on the radio, everything everywhere else was all about death and really sad songs. But that's not true. It's like that all the time. You just don't hear it. So we've got to be really careful saying, do I genuinely want that? One of my favourite things to say to people, especially if they're new into fetish or kink or anything else, is go slow. Go slower than you think you want to go. You've got time. We're still doing it fucking into our 60s. So you've got loads and loads of time to do these things. Go somewhere, experiment, keep it there. If it works, don't go fucking great at pushing it straight away. Push it the next time or the time after. Don't do it immediately. Cosmic will tell you a story of when he was regularly seeing somebody who was a lesbian. And they played a lot, but she absolutely said no sex, categorically no sex. I only want women. And in the middle of a scene, when they were doing something, she said, fuck me already. Now, a lot of people go, thank you very much, right? A lot of people would, but he didn't. He stopped and he said, Jesus, you need to be really sure about that. So you think about that. That's a huge change. That's a big thing. Let's have a talk about it and then we'll see what we do next time. And they did. They ended up in a relationship for 2 years. So, you have to just go slow and take things slowly in the moment, in the heat of passion. So that's another problem as well, isn't it? When we want to please someone, doesn't matter whether we're top or bottom. That's what I'm not saying specifically. When it's someone, if you want to please them or give them a good time, you tend to do what they want. You have to also think about what you want, what you're willing to take, what you're willing to give, and so does the other person. It's a four-way system, not a two-way. What am I comfortable with? What works for me? And we are influenced by what we see. We are influenced by toys. We are influenced by what looks like a great time. We're influenced by research. Well, people come like that. Do they know? I see a lot of people with sexual problems and difficulties in their own way, and we all have our own things. There's no such thing as completely normal. It doesn't exist. However, too extreme causes us a problem. Like OCD, if you tap the light switch 3 times, who gives a shit whether you turn it on or off? If you can't go out the house without having tapped it and have to go back and make sure you tap it again, and you have to stay in all day to tap it, now we've got a problem. We have to think about those things. Those are the 2 questions. Right. Is that what is it?
So an incident came up recently, a safe word was used, and straight after Don Daddy said, was that too intense? He did stop, but I felt that I came across as I wasn't enough. What are your thoughts on this?
What is a safe word? Anyone? I don't mean what's your safe word. I mean, what is a safe word?
To ask for a pause or stop.
It's a stop. So the word itself can be anything you want it to be, but a safe word means categorically, absolutely stop. What it means when we use it is utter respect. I would hope that people don't push towards safe words. A lot of us do. I push them that far, isn't that clever of me? Oh, you're such an amazing top. You're not. We've just got a problem. We need to be able to play with someone and bring them backwards and forwards, but that takes a lot of skill and a lot of experience, and that's pretty cool if we can do that. That's nice. But if we keep pushing them too far, it isn't good. If we then say, was that too intense for you? What is the message there? Do you think? That they went too hard, but listen to it. Was it too intense for you?
You didn't ask if you was.
For me, when I hear that, I hear what you're saying. For me, when I hear that, is it's a you problem. It's not a me problem. You couldn't take it. Was it too much for you? I really wanted to do that. Instead of saying, and actually really simply, can you tell me more about what happened for you? What went wrong in the middle there? Did I stop quickly enough? For me, if somebody says a safe word, you don't you step back. Your hands are in the air immediately, even if it's metaphorically. Doesn't matter. And you just say, okay, stopping. Undo anything that's been done up in any way, shape, or form. You sit down and you say, what do you need right now? And if you don't know, this is a discussion you should have had before, by the way. And I should know that you want a drink. I should know that you need a blanket. I should know that you want to watch the fucking Teletubbies for 10 minutes. I should know that shit. I should know that you need a bit of protein. Not the one you're thinking of. It's good for you. No, it's not. Right? So you should know this stuff already. We should have had these conversations. If we're saying shoulds, it's already too late. In that moment, we then do what that person needs because they feel potentially violated or not okay. Now, they're not violated because we've agreed stuff and it is okay, but we can feel quite triggered and traumatized into a situation. It's quite easily done because, again, our emotions lead these things. We need a chance to take a breath. And it really is the top's responsibility in that moment. If it is the bottom that said it, by the way, tops can call a red. Please don't think they can't. If you're forever saying, do this to me, do that to me, do this with me, do that to me, and the top says, stop, too much. I've watched it in the club for, call yourself a fucking top. Oh, you're now being abusive. You would like it if it was the other way around. It works both ways. Please don't forget that. I'm not fetish or kink or power fucking dispensers. Nobody is. It's really important. So, for me in that scenario, and it's just a personal preference, I wouldn't say, was that too much for you? I would say, was that too much? Tell me what happens. Educate me, please. Because we can turn and say, no, I shouldn't have to educate you. Actually, in this role, we do have to educate each other. It's really important that we share what our experiences were, what our feelings were, and how we're managing it. So, what do you all think? What would you do if you heard that scenario?
I mean, for me, if our nursing wasn't too, I've gone too far already. I should never have to say that because we should have discussed it enough before to know where you're going to stop, and then you don't go any further until you finish. You go, would you like to go further next time, or how was it for you? Less, more. But for me, I'd be worried if I said it was too intense because it means I've lost control.
Yeah, potentially. I can really see
What
that.
if someone is really particularly scared of going a respectful word, but let's say your body reacts well to respectful words, but your mind doesn't react as fast. But your dog knows that you could. At that point, where are we?
The problem, I'm really sorry to say this to anybody, and I'm going to say it, and I covered it on Thursday actually. Whose responsibility is it to stop something, even if you're in a really traumatic place and things aren't okay? It is yours. This is really hard for us to grab a hold of. If you do not have the capacity to stop something because you go into a different headspace, the person you're playing with needs to know that. It's so important. Or if you do something, I had this person come into workshop about 4 years ago during COVID, and they said, you're probably going to tell me everything every other fucking person tells me. And I'm like, that's quite aggressive already. But when I come out of subspace, I tend to punch people, was their response. And I said, gosh, what do you mean punch people? Well, physically, I'm untied or whatever, and I'm like, poof. And they said, I've been told not to play. I went, yeah, I'd agree. Until you can control that and you know what you're doing, that's not fair. Why should I stop my play because of my traumatic history? Because it is your responsibility. No one will stop it. So we have to be really careful and we have to be aware. And if you're in a place that you cannot control what is happening or you go into a different headspace, you need to either communicate beforehand. I had an inbox a couple of years ago, and it's one that really upset me because somebody said I'd been attacked by my partner. It was actually, I was raped by my partner. We were doing a scene, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. What happened? Are you okay? Please don't tell me if you can't, because of your repeat trauma, it actually makes it worse sometimes. Please make sure you've got support, go and see someone. But they then proceeded to tell me what happened. Let me tell you now, it was a clusterfuck. It was a real shame. They were playing. She goes into a little space sometimes. When she's in a little space, they have an agreement not to have sex when she's little. She went to the toilet in the middle of the scene. He said, leave the door open, let me watch you. It's been agreed, they've done it before. When she was peeing and he watched her wipe herself, she went into a little space. She got up, she went back in the room, she bent over and he gave her a good scene to. Who is to blame? Who the fuck knows of that one? Yeah, exactly. Oh, fucking hell. Should he have noticed that she got into a little space, and how does he? Is it my responsibility to say, you seem a bit different, are you okay? Yes, it is. But what if they're not different? What if it's just internal? What do we do then? Who is to blame? That is a clusterfuck. It is a bomb. It's a nightmare. And when he was told, he was devastated as well. And she is devastated. So we've got to be really careful about these things. We've got to explore. This is why I really advocate talking. Look, there's a wax play workshop after this. I want to go to it. They go, I want to learn how to do wax. Why? What do you know about the psychology of this? What do you know about the safety? What do you know about the safety of burns? Anyone here got a first aid training? Anyone here got a first aid kit when they play? Anyone here got a play first aid kit? Which is very different, a few of you have, to anything else that we have. What do we need to have here? Do we know how that person's skin will respond? Do we know what will happen? So we have to be really responsible for each other. This shit still kills us. God, only a couple of years ago, there was a couple in Glasgow where they decided to do some breath play, which, by the way, is the most dangerous thing we can do. It is absolute edge play, choking and breath play. It's worse than waterboarding, which is a water torture. You think that's worse. It's not. Breath play is the worst. It's the most dangerous thing we can do. 2 seconds and we can be dead. Doesn't take a very long time. We'll be unconscious, we don't realise, and therefore we're dead within seconds. And they were both very pissed, and they decided to do some extreme play, and she died, and he went for a walk for half an hour because he didn't know what to do. He was also pissed. Should we be pissed? Should we be out of our heads? Like, the answer is no. Never. Do this shit sober. And I think we've got to be really careful. If we have stuff that we're not okay with, when we revisit trauma or different things, it disempowers us, especially if we do it in the placing scenario. So I think we've got to be careful. And we have to be aware for ourselves, and our tops have to be it's quite a lot of responsibility, isn't it? And you thought you were just coming in to get fisted.
I think in reality, everybody has a duty of care for the people that they're playing with, regardless of what position they are and what role they have and what they're doing that day. Everyone has a duty of care to look after the people that they're playing with and make sure everybody's on the same page. All the consent and boundaries have been fully communicated.
A lot of people don't want to do that. One of the questions I was asked on Thursday is, how do you keep negotiation and consent and communication fun? By doing it thoroughly. All you're about to have is fun. If you don't do it thoroughly, it isn't. And that's one of the main things. And we can do it in a fun way. We can talk about these things, we can exchange, and we can write our books. We can talk about our limits, and we can have a lot of fun with those things, especially if they're tasks and they work well. But if you don't have a conversation and then something goes wrong, it's too late. Pre-morteming is really important. Astronauts pre-mortem. I've said this before. So if you go up into space and you are a scientist, but you're not an engineer, you are taught basic engineering. Why? Because there is some form of fix that needs to happen while you're up there. However, when you're up there, you will go blind, probably at some stage. Because of gravity, because of tears, because of what we hold and how it works, we tend to get eye infections very quickly up there and we can go blind. So when you are taught engineering, you're taught it with both eyes wide open. I think you should think about this when you're doing rope or hitting or anything else. You can get one eye shut, you do it with the other eye shut, you do it with both eyes shut, without the panic. Pre-morteming is really important. You pre-mortem when you go on holiday. If you get milk delivered, you stop it. If you don't, that's very silly. Oh, I forgot about that. So the burglars see 23 bottles of milk outside the front of your house, or the newspapers build up, or the lights aren't on, or all those other things. Thinking about what could happen is a really good idea. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. It doesn't mean, it's not the law of fucking attraction. This person will have a really bad time and I will fuck it up. It's not about that. It's about being prepared for all the good and the bad. Because at least if you are prepared, it's a good thing. Believe me, when something goes wrong and someone's skin opens or something happens and you won't, if you've got something, so like I have, I love these, they're quite new. You can now buy, I don't know if you've seen them, but you can buy these plasters that are zip ties. Have you seen those? They're a fantastic thing for a kinky person's box nowadays. Not their actual box, I mean. So, you buy them on Amazon, you can buy them anywhere. If you've got anything that could potentially cut or split skin, these are two plasters you put on the other side, you pull the zip tie, 3 principles across the middle, and it pulls it completely together. If you act fast, that's much better than waiting 5 hours in A&E. Little things like that. So keep up to date. Look at what's around. Don't ever think you know it all. They are a wonderful addition. Things go wrong. Someone can fall out of fucking bed and split their head open, can't they? There are all sorts of things happening. Right, so there are those questions answered. Is that person happy with that answer? Yeah, okay. Go on.
On the not being sure where each other are, you can of course check in various ways as you go along. So you can use words, you can use touch, exchange of touch signals, and no response means stop. The problem with that though is for some people that take them out of the headspace.
Yeah, so if you're lost in a headspace, if you are somebody who disappears into a subspace or a top space, it goes both ways. It's not just one. Can you actually notice, or do you have a responsibility? Well, you both have responsibility. I used to have a friend about 15 years ago when we were at play parties, she would always just disappear. Not literally, she would just disappear into her own head. And you would often then watch somebody taking advantage. So I would go over, you're not allowed to do this at any party. I'd go over and say, I really need you to stop. Who the fuck are you? I would get. Her friend was my answer, and she did not consent to that, and you need to stop. She fucking did. I went, I'm not going to argue with you. I'll get on her if that's what's needed. And then when she came round, so we really have to be responsible. If you're with someone new, can you afford to go into that headspace? Not always. Like when you meet someone for the first time, is it truly sensible to go and get fully tied up? I don't think so. I don't know you. Who the fuck are you? But we do it, don't we? Yeah, you can choke me out. Or sorry, do you know how to do recess? But I better ask. It's a bit too late. I know how to do resource. I can't fucking do it myself if I'm the one who's out. And also, I'm older. There's a lot more risk with that. I have high blood pressure. There's a lot more risk with that. I don't do that shit anymore. Not because I don't want to. I fucking love it, but it might kill me. Again, personal responsibility, that's a limit. But some of us are really frightened to hold limits and say that's not okay because it might not please the person that we're with.
That's not what's happening. So thank you.
Very welcome. It's a discussion to have with that person and say, look, I love this idea of when you I feel I want, and it comes back to the first question. Somebody doesn't upset you. What they did upset you. That's the power. And what we need to say is when you did that, not you're a cunt and you did that to me, that doesn't help an argument. That puts the person in the corner. You're a bad person because you did that to me. Look, if you don't ever want to break someone's heart or upset someone, you would all be married to your primary school lover. The one that just went, mwah, that was as much as the loving as you got. And I love you, and we're going to be together forever, and we're going to get married. Okay, then. And then you hit 20 and you're fucking marrying that person, even though your bloody sexuality is completely different, or your gender is, or anything else as well. Of course we upset people along the way. You'll upset people in this community, you'll upset people in kink, you'll upset people in any of these things. How you do it really matters. With care, with respect, with firmness, with boundaries. And that's another word. Fuck me, that word boundaries. Who here's got boundaries? Who here really struggles with boundaries? I think we misuse the word boundaries. A boundary is, if I've got a boundary as a consequence to me will mean it affects my mental health, it will put me in hospital, or it'll end up with one of us in prison. Why do I say it like that? And the final one is, I will end up leaving you. When I work with couples and polycules and different people, I often talk about bronzes, silvers, and golds. A gold means, I will leave you if you do that to me. That's what a boundary is. The rest are preferences. That's a boundary. Why aren't you gone then? Yeah, but I just want you not to do that to me. So it's a preference. Or is it a boundary? Which one is it? Make sure you know, because a boundary means I'm not staying. Ever say that again, I'm out. You don't mean that, right? That's really hard to do for lots of us. So lots of them are preferences. Boundaries really fucking matter. They matter in life. So I really hope that people get that. Who's got a different question?
My nesting partner and I have been playing with other people and having relationships with
Do people know what nesting partner means? So nesting partner means that somebody's potentially polyamorous, may have sex and or relationships with other people, but has a partner that they live with, which by default creates a hierarchy, even though it doesn't. There's no such thing as non-hierarchical poly. I'm really sorry, there isn't. I know that's really unpopular for me to say, and you can really disagree with me, but just by default, there isn't. And your hierarchy should fucking start with you, so it's always hierarchical. So, been playing with others.
Yes, and up until this point, we have been looking at our toy collection, which we have been collecting like deranged magpies for years, and just making almost one-off, decisions about, oh yeah, take this, play with them, or no, based on what happened last time, maybe this one will be fun. But it's getting to the point where we can't remember what we'd said previously, and we'd like to implement some sort of system to it, like put some different kind of electrical tape around it, just to categorize them in some way. And I would like, based on kind of ideas about having multiple relationships, play relationships, open relationships, multiple romantic relationships, and also hygiene and any other things. I'd like your advice on that, please, because it's been a long time since I've done any of that stuff.
Okay, for me, again, fucking hell, this is going to be the epitaph of my growth. I have a writing on that about how to care for toys really properly, whether they're rope, whether they're leather, whether they're plastic, whether they're latex. Doesn't matter what they are. Every single thing we have needs caring for in a completely different way. Don't just learn how to use a toy, learn how to care for the toy. I personally have a very strong philosophy as a woman who likes things inserted into her. I'm also a human being who has a slightly impacted immune system because I have had cancer and chemo. So I'm aware of that. So my toys are for me. That is it. So if you're going to have other toys, I would have separate ropes for different people and I would colour coordinate them. So rope has sweat on it. I'm really sorry, and it has body fluids, doesn't it? You work with it all the time.
And it's the thing that's actually the best oil to lubricate your rope is human sebum. Sebum, that is, not semen, sebum.
The natural oil on our skin. And you've also got to remember, depending on the sort of rope that you use, there's Oprah coming over all his ropes before he ties you up. I'm sure I heard in Deb's workshop, I'm actually really complimenting you there, but I'm sure I heard this was a good thing, yeah, I'm just touching the end of my cock. Right, so, but yes, you don't know. I haven't got one, sorry. So it's really important to understand the care of toys, including rope. Also, the sort of rope you have needs different care, and the sort of rope you have responds differently to environmental factors such as damp, such as heat. They can tighten more, they can loosen more, they can tighten and change their texture. So every single thing we use has a different impact due to environment, people, oils, liquids. We have lots and lots of liquids. If you truly look at the world, it is a very dirty place. Believe me, you would never go on the tube again. If you want to...
Or the back row of the cinema.
Anywhere, really, even your own home. But when I gave birth to my youngest, she was born dying. She had 5 loads of major surgery, and we had to go straight into hospital, and it was horrific. And we were put in a room, separate room. Do you know why? She was a contaminated baby. She was born at home. She was called a contaminated baby. Fuck me, that's what she was called. I mean, I tell her that often now. No, I don't. But why would you say that shit to any child? Or have it about a child? It can really make you feel. But she was contaminated because she was exposed to all the virus and bacteria that was in my house. So when you go to hospital, you're not exposed in the same way. There are, however, other things there as well. So we have to be really aware of that. For me, and this is a personal opinion, and please feel free to say differently, I'm a big believer in if you want to play with me, you buy a toy from me. If you want to play with me, depending on the toy. So if it's like metal, these things can be cleaned differently. There are some perspexes and latexes that can be cleaned differently, but not all the time. Rubber can be too, but it depends on the rubber. Candles and waxes and different things, again, normally okay. Ropes, definitely not. A lot of floggers, depending on what they're made of. Leather is a fucking bitch to clean. Suede is a bitch to clean. And actually latex deteriorates the more, like, especially if it's a thin latex or it's a toy. I promise I'll come back to you in 1 second. Even if it's a fabric, even if we wash it, these things take in aspects of us, our smells and everything else as well. So for me, label it, hang it differently, separately. You're hanging and they're touching, you know. Do I think that's a bit extreme? Yes. But do I think it's the best way forward? Yes.
So totally separate toys for...
I would go for totally separate toys unless it was something that could absolutely be cleaned in a fucking dishwasher or at high temperature. Even wood, even if it's really well varnished, like you make wooden toys, don't you? So like, can they be polluted? Of course, yeah. 100%. You were going to say?
Yeah, I think you were saying more to do with he's getting confused about what they used the last time and what one they should use next. We name our stuff. They've all got names. Is that so? You kind of know. Oh, right.
Harry's coming out today.
Right.
Bert's in.
Right. That's a good way. Name them. As you each toy you get, give it a name.
I have toys in the hundreds.
Barcode and scanner.
Numbers then, bro.
If I go on.
I did have the same challenge. Just playing for 30 years, you acquire a few toys and had a playroom. We always said anything that's insertable, we've got a condom on it.
Yep.
And that allows you to then use it for more partners. You are right, the floggers did cause hair concern.
They do.
So for my one, it was just saying that one is yours and never using it for anyone else. So my primary partner at the time was now ex-wife later. That's another story. Yeah, we did have. The thing is, she had a fetish for purple, so it's really easy. We just bought purple toys for her. Then purple, then it was hers. So we went.
So I was going to say that's the other thing. So you can't see this, but this is my toy cupboard, right? There are honestly thousands of toys in this house. I've got privacy screen as it comes out to you. So can you see that I've got quite a few toys? And there are 2 drawers underneath, right? make sure that's turned off yet. I've got a lot of toys. And it's mainly what colour? Orange. What a shock, eh? So I've got a lot of toys, right? And in the bottom, you can't see there is coordinated rope, there's coordinated wax. Everything is coordinated. But what I know about all of those toys is that they are mine and they can be used on me and they are safe for me to use on me. Oh, sorry. If I play with anyone else, I tend to buy something, maybe a little bit cheaper, maybe a little bit different, and maybe in some way. Because also what I have in there is I have things that cause serious bruising and damage. Like there's one metal tube with a massive piece of wood on the bottom. I've got fucking bollards in there that are outrageous to play with. But I've also got stuff, if you hit some with, like upstairs, it's going to draw blood every time because it's spiked at the end. That sort of stuff, you've got to be really careful. Please let me tell you, there is no such thing as safe sex, and there is no such thing as safe play. Who here uses a condom for safe sex? If you look at this,
Hold on, 97%.
it's 97% if you use it perfectly. Let me tell you, you don't use it perfectly. I did 2 years as a psychosexual psychotherapist course as an extra, and it was a really interesting weekend on the safety of birth control, of sex, and of what we tend to spread and do. Let me tell you now, that figure goes down to under 90% because you don't use it properly. Anyone here absolutely hold that condom at the end of the base of their dick when they pull it off every time when you pull out someone? Everyone hold it? No. If you don't, you're already using it wrong. You fuck someone, you've come inside that condom, hold it tight, let the person go out. If you put on a toy, hold it tight on the base, let the person pull out of it. There's no such thing as safe sex. Because you've also got to remember that a lot of things that are transmitted past all those horrible words that we fucking use. I hate the word clean. You are not unclean if you have some form of STD. You're just sexually active, because welcome to reality. What's the percentage? I think most of us have some form of cold sore. I get cold sores. The amount of people who say to me, don't worry, you can still go down on me. Why do you think that's okay? Well, it's a different form. I can still give you herpes. You don't know what you're talking about. I fucking do! I really do! But it's just a desperation to get a blowjob or to be gone down on in that moment. It's really dangerous shit. So there's no such thing as safe sex. Things could be passed skin to skin, bit to bit, fabrics and textures. So you all have to understand to make a risk-aware assessment about the risk that we're taking. So if you want to use some toys for people that you know that you can clean, glass is really cleanable, some perspexes are, not all, depends if they're scratched. Some of the toys that draw blood, you can unscrew those bits and you can put the plastic bits in the dishwasher. Make sure you clean the screw. Bedding, towels.
Pillows, everything.
Yeah. If you really want to be specific, no one wants to be that fucking specific. It's ridiculous. You let people piss in your mouth. Let's not go over the top. I'm not saying you do. But let's not go over the top either. Let's be a little bit realistic. But no, that's a fallacy. Let me guess. Gravestone, I have a full writing on piss plate. It is not sterile. It is not. You might think it is. It is not sterile. And in fact, I'm a really good example of that. Anyone here, chemo? Jesus, okay. That's quite unusual. 1 in 2 people, even around our ages. So that's unusual. When you have chemo, guess what you're told for the next 2 days after you're pissing? You are toxic. You must wash it down. You must make sure that nobody else goes anywhere near it for the next 2 days because you're peeing out chemotherapy chemicals. It is toxic. So, No. The first 4 chemos I had, honestly, there were these massive, it's like some weird toy, strange environment. There's these huge syringes, they're about this big. And it was like you were being injected with Tizer. So I had something called a PICC line in. And it just went in, this massive Tizer liquid just went into my system. And I was like, this is just, it's really surreal. But the piss I was taking out was slightly red because of that. But I'm like, is that Tizer? Definitely isn't. Definitely wasn't. You end up feeling very ill. And I lost all my hair. So it's like, Tizer is a bright red, fizzy cherry. It's not cherry, but it's a really bright red drink. And you're like, it just looks like Tizer. But yes, it's lethal. So fucking know what you're doing. If you have chemicals in your body, even hormonal chemicals, because you're on a pill, they influence what you're pissing out. So you cannot control everything. So do what you think is reasonable and what the other person accepts is reasonable. I'm talking about the extreme, even if we're going to bedding. different towels, different blankets, different things. You really should. People shouldn't really be sharing toothbrushes and towels. But if you're fucking living with someone and you're shoving loads of things in each other, share your fucking toothbrushes and towels. You know? Honestly, there are more bacteria when you kiss someone than if you lick someone's arse out. You can all go, oh, I'm not going to do rimming. You might not, right? But actually, there's less bacteria than there is in the fucking mouth. So get over ourselves. The smell might not be as nice, mind you. Tonsil stones, you never know. Oh, yeah, not good. It really impacts your breath. So what I'm saying is there are streams everywhere. Do what you feel comfortable with. That all 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 of you feel comfortable with. That's why we need kitchen table poly to have the conversations. I personally, yeah, but some things that is really is okay for everyone to play with. That really isn't. Like, you know, that's been inside you so many times, and it is whatever. I don't want to spread that. This one I'm happy with. This one I'm not so happy with. Also, some of the things that cause the most emotional hurt in polyamorous relationships is actually someone using something that we're not comfortable with. What I mean by that is I don't mean sex. So there's a really classic one where really happy to be polyamorous, really happy to be polysexual. She walks back into the house and she goes, hi! And they go, hi, we're in the lounge. So can I come in? Like, really respectful, consensual. Oh, yeah, sure. She walks in. She goes, fuck, oh my God. And she walks out. Why? Saw a toy, so she didn't. I'll tell you what, she saw their first anniversary wine glasses and they were sharing it.
Oh,
No, you might go, oh, Christina, you didn't think about it at the time. Neither did she. They just grabbed 2 glasses for a glass of wine each. The hurt that she felt was, I can't deal with that. I thought that was ours. Now, often in relationships, even if we're polyamorous, polysexual, even if we're fucking solo poly, all of these things have a big impact on us.
I'm going to have a week.
All right.
These things happen.
I mean, you can take that anywhere, really.
So we have to be really careful about, we assume that it's going to be one thing that hurts us. It isn't. It's that you put them or you use that favourite toy. I have 2 floggers that I love. I have Lady Grey, who is just, she's just beautiful. Dee makes all my floggers for me. She designs them for me. I ask her very, so it's got this beautiful burnt handle in copper with all these beautiful greys. Anyone use that on someone else, I'd be like, that's mine. I feel funny about it. And I've got another one in oranges, clearly. And that's mine too. The others don't care so much about. But these 2, they were made for me. They're heavy, they're thick, they're fuddy, they're mine. So that needs an ask as well. Titles as well. Like if you're somebody who wants daddy and someone else calls someone daddy, you might not feel as comfortable. But if they call someone master or sir or by their name or some other affectionate thing or puppy or on my liege or some kind of, you can use different languages as well. That can work too. Some people don't like the same name. So these are all about discussions. Is that answered you enough?
Yeah.
And I would also look at the writing I've got about how to keep your toys clean. So I've gone to every person who makes toys here and said, what would you recommend? So that's got it all in there. Autoclave, yeah, definitely. But also top of the dishwasher is very similar because it was sterilised. Milton sterilisation. I'll come back to you.
Hi, I've got a question about sort of pre-communication. So, like, what he was saying is trying to communicate before acting with someone else. And I guess as someone that's kind of erratic and indecisive, and maybe even on the day your mood can fluctuate and what you want can fluctuate. How do you deal with that? Because sometimes you don't even know until you're in that moment, and maybe at that time it can get too late. And
it's never too late.
Sometimes you're just not sure.
This is the first thing you need to know is it is never too late.
Yeah.
No one has the right to do anything. Like Phil mentioned earlier, the cup of tea consent video. Just because someone offered you a cup of tea last week and you drank it doesn't mean you have to drink it today. You do not have to, but we are so unaware of that. And I would also argue that people who are born with cunts are often very much educated to facilitate, to make it okay to just see it through, to not put their point out there. Other people are as well, I really understand that. However, I would say that's a much more women, female type based principle that we teach women to shut the fuck up to not ask for what they want. If we then add in maybe some mental health issues or some insecurity or something else as well, especially if we identify as female and we see that, it means there's a part of us that's a lot more full of estrogen, which is a very different hormone and has a very different impact on us. There is never a time when you cannot say no. There is never a time to stop something or cancel it. It is always okay. And if it isn't okay, what we have to understand is that our partner might be upset. They have a right to their upset. They don't have a right to be a cunt about it. So you have a right to be angry. You don't have a right to be aggressive. There's such a difference in that. So like when we talk about verbs and nouns and that, you can feel it. You don't have to do it. I'm really sorry. I know this has upset you. I know it disappoints you. Honestly, I really think it's important that all of us, tops and bottoms, should practice and see if we can say no to someone and use it on a regular basis. I'll come back, I promise. I've got 3. And I think it's really important. So whatever mood you're in, communicate it however you need to, but it's really important you do it because retroactive withdrawal of consent is shit.
Because even if you do it sort of previously, maybe you've done it previously, you've spoken about this all the time, and then that particular day, you don't want it. And then you don't realise you don't want it until you're actually in it, and then you've done it.
So it's okay
Yeah.
to safe word, red,
Yeah.
mine's silver, what's going on. And I actually believe in having 2 different safe words. I believe in having a physical safe word and an emotional safe word. I think if you haven't heard that before, please start to integrate that into your play. It's not that I want this physically to stop, so I might use a different word. I have my own as well, but so I might not say silver because silver's about physical for me, and I use my emotional stop word because I'm not in the right headspace. It's not that this is bad, it's that I'm not okay. And that gives your partner a different, oh my God, I'm really going to understand you differently. People heard of that before? Anyone not heard of that? Please use it. Please integrate it into your play. Have an emotional stop word as well as a physical one. So that might help you as well because you can have a different reason. I'm having a bad day, I'm stressed, I'm not okay, my hormones are fucked, you don't know what happened today, but we need to share. Someone, if you take away that right, if you have a problem saying no, I think one of the best things we can think about is you are taking something away from your partner then because they want to respect you, they want to love you, they want you to have a good time, 9 times out of 10, not always. So it's important that we allow them the information in order to make those decisions. When we don't, we take that power away from them. That's not fair on them either. Because like that guy who fucked that little, he didn't want to do that. But the power, it was taken away. I was brutally raped when I was 21, even after I was kinky. I was in hospital for 3 days. I was knocked out, being dragged down a flight of stairs by my ankles with my head hitting everything on the way down. I was passed out for about 2 days. And it was by my boyfriend's partner at that time. And what's interesting for me is I understand my part in it. Never been in a room with someone that off their face and thinking that they can never get sexual. Believe me, they can. I would never be with someone who's on that many drugs ever again in a room by myself or in a flat or a house by myself. And the other thing, so I am aware of my part in it, but the thing that fucked me off even more than what happened, and I don't have clear memories, I've done the work to have the memories back on a cellular level, is that because they broke his ankle, my boyfriend and his mate at the time, they took away my rights to do anything about it. They broke my consent twice. So it's really important that we have our voices. But if you don't give someone an opportunity, have a think about that. And please have an emotional safe word as well. Would that help, do you think?
Yeah.
The other one was also adding, good thing, just adding to that.
I'll come back to you.
Question is that I never shoot, so even if I know someone I've been for ages, I'll check the week before, day before, an hour before, and literally before we start, that they're still in that same space. And I've got no issue with them changing up or just sit down and watch the telly. I'm not those people that some people get a challenge that the person you're saying no to reacts badly because they're a dickhead.
You're allowed to feel upset, you're allowed to feel disappointed, if you aren't allowed to be a cunt about it.
But it's like mental health, it fluctuates.
Yeah, of course it does. But so does our sexuality, as in our sex drive, you know. One of the most things I'm asked all the time is, can you make sure their sex drive goes up? Fuck do you do that? We're trying to inject them with something. I can't. And it really varies. So I might be able to get someone's sex drive to go up minimally and make someone's come down minimally, but the disparity is something you have to work around. And that's something we have to do. And that can be mental health. That can be just we're pissed off with a day. It can be that we're stressed. It can be that something awful happens. So what were you going to say?
Well, that goes some of the storm, yeah. If you're negotiating beforehand, put that in your negotiation. So, look, I would like you to ask me on the day, but I turn up on your doorstep if I'm okay today.
or right
But
now.
I mean, if you do struggle with like thinking about it, because sometimes you don't want to say no, because you're like thinking like, am I okay about this?
Yeah.
Even just adding something like maybe humming or something might mean I'm thinking about it. It's not no, but I'm just considering. So
And that's why an emotional safeguard works for me. It's I'm struggling with this, I don't know, let's stop, we'll see where we're going. Or if you can't say it, you can hum it, you can write it, you can send a text, you can WhatsApp. I see some people in my therapy room, I'm not kidding, especially some of the kids, they'll fucking Snapchat me or they'll WhatsApp me before they even talk to me. I have somebody at the moment who's been mute for 4 years, electively, chosen not to say a word. We can still work together. It still works. He's making these incredible steps forward of like he's bought his own shopping list, he's done all these incredible things, and his parents are really shocked. It's no shock, but we need to learn to have a safe space within which to be able to communicate. So also pick your partners right.
I'll just jump in on that one.
I'll come back to you, Phil, I promise. I'll come back to you.
With a lot of people that I've been in parts of social services, they've got a lot of mental health issues, and even if they come and say, "Oh, maybe we can play," maybe it's a fucking no to me. I don't give a shit.
Yes.
You turn up on my door, I go, "Oh, maybe we can play." I'm still like, no, maybe it's a no. No.
Maybe it's a no till it's a yes.
Yes. I want an instant fucking no. A day before when I turn up, no matter what. Even if I knew it, like, oh, maybe we'll play tomorrow. I won't turn up to someone's fucking house to all the expecting to fucking play. Mum and Dad, sorry. A no's a no. And a maybe's a no.
It is a no. I wouldn't disagree with you. And what we've got to be careful of is when we can't say no. So, like, when you've got somebody there who's really struggled with that, and I can hear the struggle, I can hear the upset in your voice because of those situations, we also have to realise the impact we have on somebody else because we give them hope or we set something up. Listen, there's nothing worse than disappointment in kink and in relationships in general. When we set something up, this will definitely happen tonight, love, and it doesn't again, and it doesn't again, and it doesn't again. It ruins any relationship that we've got. Whereas if you're clear it's a no, it's fine. It's when we keep setting things up and pulling it back that we actually have more problems. Can I come back to you in one second, Phil, and go on quickly.
I was going to say, when you're starting new relationships of any kind, saying red, no matter what side of that relationship you're on, is a really good litmus test. Like to just check how the other person responds. Like it can be problematic to spring it on someone. Like you just bend over for something for your first spanking and then say red just to see what they'll do. Maybe you have to apologise for that afterwards and say I was just testing. But hopefully that top will understand why you did it. And go, okay, just want to see how I reacted. But and the same goes both ways. You could, as an early on litmus test, do it just to see how the other person responds. When if
you can tell, go out to dinner with someone first. Look at how they treat you. Honestly, you can tell a lot by the way people treat others. You don't have to jump straight into playing sex. Watch them in an environment with human beings. That will tell you so much. You didn't get my water quickly enough. I don't care how wealthy you are. I don't care how privileged you are. You don't treat someone like a cunt. Well, depending on that cunt. But you don't treat someone badly or without respect or care. I don't care if I'm spending £1,000 on a dinner. I don't care if I'm buying a fucking Chick-fil-A in America. Everybody deserves my care, respect, and my kindness. It's irrelevant. So I think that's really important to think about as well. You were going to ask.
Yeah, on the toys thing, I was just going to add that I've played with bottoms who brought some of their own toys.
Yes.
Which is a great way to get started because you then don't have the same hygiene issues with it. It doesn't work for all things. Obviously, sometimes the top wants to use their own stuff, but that's a great way to start.
Well, I'm a bit of a twat like that really because you can use my toys. If you've got one that you want to use on me, it's mine then. From then on, I'm very particular about it. I'm particular about it. And if we are together, we will buy those toys. And do you know what? If we break up, I'm all right. You can take it. It's not a problem. You can have it. I get a bit annoyed when it's Prof's Magic Box that you couldn't fucking get a replacement of. Punch of it. But actually started making them again. So now I've got two just in case someone else needs it. Because they were such a good toy and then he stopped making them. And I was right to like, hi. No, Deb, I'm not making them. Hey, let me know when you are. All of a sudden they're on Facebook and you went, Deb, I've made a couple. Bye.
What is it?
Prof's Magic Box. So it's really clever, but it's like a TENS piece of electric equipment whereby you've got two dials on it.
That's an Eastern.
it's like an e-stim. So you're, as the top you hold one part, and as the bottom you hold one part. So you can, the electric current runs through your tongue, through your toy, through everything else as well. But if you want to stop it, you just drop it. So you have complete power. It's a great toy. Honestly, Prof is a very clever human being, been around for a long time. It's really good. So if you go to lick someone, the electrical current can run through your tongue or through your little finger or anything else as well if you're both holding on to one part of it. Not so good. Well, it doesn't hurt so much because I've had a pierced tongue and used it. Yeah, you can feel it. But it's a brilliant piece. You can feel the current run through you, but it works brilliantly through your nails, through your toy, especially if you've got metal toys or anything else as well. So you both hold on to it. So it's so consensual because at any point you just drop it.
It works on the solar principle.
What, them on Amazon?
No, Prof's on Facebook and he still sells them sometimes. He's on FetLife. David gets them sometimes as well. So
It's got fear in her eyes now. Don't give me too many.
The neat thing with them, they feel different to teens or violet ones.
they do. It's an
Different
electrical
sensation.
current that's sent through you that's really different. So as soon as you touch, you get the, it's like a, it's quite interesting. They're great. They're really wonderful. Right, we're near the end. Anyone got a last question before we finish off, or are we done?
Nature and nurture.
With only 8 minutes to go.
Can we end on like a positive
Yeah.
thing instead of like, you know, like the child?
It is positive. Nature and nurture, the answer is both. You were born with the potential to be someone you wanted to be. Your environment may or may not influence it. But the point is, what stops you from doing it is the shit that you hear.
Yeah, it's true.
So if you want to do it, go out and do it.
Yeah.
Are you more like, so there is an argument that BDSM is a hobby or we're born this way. More and more research is starting to prove. So if you really want to go and read the research, Richard Sprott is your man. He's the real expert at this. He's wonderful. SPROTT for those that are taking a note. He's the one that's doing the best. So the research is really shitty around all of this because it talks to everybody all the time. If you want to do research in a specific field, speak to us. Speak to the specific people, and that's what he does. So his research is really amazing, and the answer is both. So some people might learn it, some people might have it stimulated, but you're not going to learn it if it wasn't in you. If you're all of a sudden curious and you're like, oh, this is really interesting, it was probably always there, it just hasn't been stimulated by your environment. And people start to see things, plus we live in a really different world nowadays, it is accessible. You've got to remember, when I started BDSM, fuck me, it wasn't around. It wasn't in your day-to-day stuff. Someone maybe hit you or did something, you thought, actually, I really like that, what's wrong with me? But then you had to go to the back of Forum magazine or find parties or find a load of these contact things.
Joys of the early 90s.
Oh, and there was no fucking internet. It did not exist. So even this sort of stuff, the parties and the private stuff,
You had
was
a
really
proper mailing list as in it came in the post.
came in the post in a white envelope frequently. Actually, it was very rarely brown because your parents were opening it because that's a bill, and it was often typed. And then you would have pictures in the back of it trying to find. It was just, honestly, you had to get in with people who are running parties and doing stuff, and it was just such a different world. The point is, we're so exposed to it nowadays that it does activate that nature because you're like, oh my god, I really like this.
The bonus back then is there's a lot more validation, right, or wrong. And the fact that, as you said, if somebody came along, somebody took responsibility for you coming along. So if you went to a party, went to an event, you only got to go because someone who's already known by the organizer who brought them along. If that person misbehaved, you were the one who got in trouble.
I'd also add, there were plenty of people around, however, and it still happens now, is that if you want to go to that party, if you suck my cock or fuck me, you're much more likely to get in. There was a lot of that. And I would say there's a lot more consent and better things nowadays. We're more aware than we ever have been. And we talk. We know. Honestly, if you want to know some names of people that I'd avoid, I can't mention them in public. Fucking right to me privately.
Also, conversely, you know, we're now exposed to the dangers of kink talk, aren't we? With loads of bad advice as well.
I remember once.
Kink's for getting over traumas.
No, it's not. Honestly, even if you're a therapist, there are plenty of professional dominatrixes who say you needed a spanking to help yourself get over that. Trauma is felt on a cellular level. This is a responsive, emotional thing that you experience that you had. If you go into a situation that recreates that trauma, you could actually end up worse off. Please get proper advice. And if you go and see a therapist, like actually, you said you were studying. So how long have you been studying for? You can say, tell me to fuck off if you don't want me to ask you.
I'm not that into it, to
Okay, all right, so certificate of like listening skills and counselling, you're starting off, yeah. So you then go on to do a 2-year course if you want to be a counsellor, or a 3-year degree, or a 4-year course if you want to be a psychotherapist, right? And they all take different levels of therapy that you have to learn and do all different things. What's interesting in all of those courses, no matter what, and bear in mind, I just spoke to 3rd-year psychology students, and I said, so tell me about your experience of trauma, and they went fight or flight. So I went, hang on, what about fight, flight, freeze, friend, fuck, flop, phone, fawn? Probably you haven't heard of those either. When somebody's always a good person for you, are they fawning? And there's all these different interesting responses. There's a whole extra year you need to do just on trauma alone, if not 2. But it's not taught in your average place. So when I go and see someone, I'm like, what trauma training have you had? How much therapy have you had? What have you done? I'm a cunt when it comes to interviewing a therapist. Be that cunt. It's really important. So nature, nurture, both. The most interesting piece of research on that is around something called the, which is not connected to kink. It's a really interesting guy. I can't remember his name for the fucking life of me right now. It'll probably come to me later. Sorry, I can't remember everything. He was doing research on serial killers. And he was also very interested in the warrior gene. There is a gene mainly in men, cis-born men, that makes them more violent. The prison community have something like a 90-something% of this warrior gene. So it is a gene, which is interesting. It's not excusable in court, but there is a gene that makes us more violent. So what was interesting, he was like, wow, yeah, serial killers are born this way. Look at these motherfuckers. Look at their brain patterns. He was a real expert in it. He was also at the same time studying some of his family because they were having problems with Alzheimer's. So all these fMRI scans, he literally dropped them one day. Puts them all together, picks them up and goes, fucking shit, cunt, piss, bollocks. I don't think he actually said that, I'm making that up. He then went to uni to lecture, and he said, look at this person's brain, if you look at the snap, if you look at how that works here, this is a classic born serial killer. Guess whose name was on the bottom? Himself. So some of you have heard this. It was himself, and he was like, fuck, he had to rethink everything. So we might have the potential for something, it depends on our environment as to how that's nurtured. And actually what we need is parenting that shows us boundaries, that shows us consequences, that is loving. We can be a bit too loving at the moment. You don't want to go to school for 6 months, you've got to be anxious, don't go and pickle. It'll be okay. I have to deal with that shit later because these kids are really suffering and hurting. Kids need boundaries, but they need loving boundaries. They need care, we need love, we need guidance, we need listening to, but we also need to hear and know. A good balance of those things isn't wrong. We need to learn to teach distress tolerance, which most of us don't have. And actually, if you're living in a state of trauma, you don't get distress tolerance taught to you because you're constantly living in a state of distress. So all of these things matter, especially if we're going to do kink and we do it like you say, use kink to help yourself get over some kind of trauma. Please don't do that. Talk to at least see a therapist alongside doing it, please, because when it blows up, it's pretty bad.
60 seconds.
Yeah, it's all right. So nature, nurture, both. Open environment, loving environment within which we say to people, sure, experiment, know your boundaries, know your consequences, look after yourself, appreciate your values, you matter. You aren't as good as the last blowjob you gave. Like, you matter more than that. And we've really got to remember that shit. Thank you very much for your time. You're welcome back anytime. You can add me on Fet Life.
I've already seen some toys up there, I've already given names, just got to buy them.
Don't, honestly, I'm not even playing with anyone at the moment.